we've hit those two possibilities. So user already exists with username. It's the same leg of code, so we can delete that. And finally, we want to store the user instead of in memory in the database. So what we'll do is we'll say var user equals let's see, username, and the same thing before is what we did. We just create the hash with the password. We'll just do the same thing here. Get rid of that. There we go. And finally, we'll do users dot. Can I just do a save on that object, or do I need to?
You can do a save. Yeah, you can do a save on. Well, you can do a save on not users, but your actual user. So
yeah.
the new user that you created.
The user I created, right?
Yep.
User dot save.
But did you? But you need to probably make your user a new user.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, got it. That's why I was like, huh, this is weird. Yeah, no, I remember now. New, and so user is actually a constructor. So, had some sublime craziness going on there. Let me find myself again. There we go. And I think I declared it as users, which is kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny looking, right? And let me double check. I have to always fact check myself. New user. Cool. Yeah, so in the example in README, you'll just see user, but in our case, we'll just do that. And then we'll just call it new user, and then we'll just add those fields as necessary. So instead of doing that, we'll just do users. And although it looks funny, this is just a user model, and we're making a user object. Maybe I should just change it back to user. I think I'm going to do that.
You did it for a reason before, right?
I know, I did it for a reason before. I don't want to confuse everybody, so we'll just do post. User and post. Okay. And then we'll go back to sign up, and instead of users, we'll do user.findOne and equals new user. And then finally, user.username will equal username. User.password will equal the create hash password. And then afterwards, we have everything in a MongoDB savable or Mongoose savable object. And then all we have to do is just call save on it. Now we don't have to listen to the callback, but we should. So, does it tell me the count, or does it just return me the user back? I forgot.
I don't think it returns.
Anything?
I believe it actually returns you the entire user.
That's what I thought. Okay. So if error, return done with error false. Otherwise, console log successfully signed up user username. Cool. And then return done. Null, which means we don't have an error, and we'll pass back the user, which is user.
So do you want to do user.username for successfully signed up user?
I don't think so. I think we pass the whole user, and then afterwards we serialize the username for serializing in and out of the session. So I think that should be right.
Okay.
Okay. So now we created a sign up API, and so now we got to make the login API. Again, we can't use the user's in-memory thing, so I actually should cut this out. Yeah, see, we passed user username, remember before, which is the whole object. And kill this. All right, perfect. So now we have are done, and now we'll just do the login really quick. So the same idea here. First, we check to see if the user exists. If the user already exists, or actually this should be if not user found. But if the user doesn't exist, false. If the password is not valid, false, then you shouldn't be able to log in. Otherwise, oh, and this one's if it is valid. But if the password is valid, then we'll check, and if it is valid, we'll just go ahead and return. So we'll follow the same logic here, except we'll use the user, the MongoDB object instead. So first thing we'll do is user.findOne, and we're going to use our user name as the search for the query. And so these queries are really interesting because they're basically JSON objects, which is really neat. Error, which is an error from MongoDB. Otherwise, we have a user that we should get back, so just one. And so now what we basically need to do is check if we got an error. If we got an error from MongoDB, then return the done callback with just, let me make this a little bigger for you guys, with the error of the database and false, which just means that we're not going to log in. Otherwise, if there is no user object that came back, so if this is null, that means that there is no user with this username. So if there is no user with this username, that means that you shouldn't be able to log in. So you should also return done, error, not error, but username not found. Okay. And then we'll do false again. You should be able to log in. Finally, we have to check to see if the password's correct. There's a lot of cases here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If the password is not correct, password is not true, and what we have to do is we have to pass the user object, which we got at this point, and the password that is attempted to be used for this user. If that password is not valid, then wrong password will return done.
Incorrect password.
Incorrect password, thank you. And false. All right, I feel really negative because these are all the reasons why you shouldn't be able to log in, right?
I mean, that's what makes this semi-secure as an application. Yeah. I'm not going to say it's the most secure, but
yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's good enough. All right, so finally, we need to do let the user actually log in. And so to do that, we'll just simply do return done with null, which means, hey, everything's A-OK, and the actual user object. And that's about it. So now we'll delete the in-memory implementation. So now we should be able to log in, and we should be able to sign up. And finally, what we need to do is we need to serialize and deserialize the user. To do that, again, you could see that we have the passport serialized user, which remember which will provide us with the user object and wants us to provide a key for that user. So in our case, we'll just do _ID. I know that looks like magic. What happens is MongoDB gives us an ID already on every object, which it generates for us, which we know to be unique. So because of that, we might as well use that for the serialization, because we know with high certainty that is going to be a unique ID. And what we'll do is we'll return user._ID. And we should put a return before every callback, just in case. It's good practice. And then on the deserialized user, we need to find the user based on the user ID given. So what we can do is we could just do user.find by ID. Oh, do we just pass the ID to it? I forgot.
You pass you pass just the ID.
Okay. So we'll
in this case, it's the username, since that's what you're... Oh, yeah.
ID.
You just did ID.
Like magic. Okay. So now we have the ID that this ID is going to come back to us because we provided the ID on the serialized part of this. So our ID comes back to us, which is our MongoDB ID, and what we can do is we just do function, again, for error, and the user, which is the user document coming from MongoDB, and we're going to do a return. Well, if there's an error, you're just going to return the done handler with a null, and we'll also, actually not null, sorry, error, to say, hey, we got an error, and false. Otherwise, return user. Well, also, just in case, I'm not sure if the mongoose returns an error if they can't find it, but we'll say if not user, return done, user not found, false. Finally, otherwise, we will do return done user. We'll say true, and we got to return the user. Cool. And boom. Okay, so now we found the user. Provide it back to to passport. So now everything's actually really asynchronous because we have to actually go off to the server and fetch that data and bring it down. As before, it was in memory, so there was no asynchronousness because it was right in the application. Okay, so now all this is implemented. We should be able to log in, log out, similarly like we did before, but those users will persist. So let's test it out. If we go over to our advanced REST client, I'm trying to see if I have a break slide. No, okay, cool. This is all the same thing. All right, so let me go to auth, and I probably should run the application. Let's see if it actually works. So npm start. I can't find module debug. Did I do an npm install here? I did. Sometimes I see that, and I thought that was in the package JSON, or it came with Express. Okay. Debug. So I'm installing the debug module. Oh, okay. No, this isn't installed because all that stuff comes in the Express package JSON. Okay. There we go.